very good morning. Thank you for joining us, Your Excellency Philip Frayne, the US Consul General based here in the United Arab Emirates. Now, in terms of 4th of July, a very, very happy America Day or 4th of July, and talk to us about what this day means to you and what's happening.
Well, thank you very much, Abdul Karim, for inviting me on your program, and I want to say hello to all your listeners in Sharjah and throughout the UAE. The 4th of July is our national day, it's our national holiday, and we have been celebrating it now for 244 years. It is the day that the people in the colonies declared their independence from Great Britain to form their own country. Now, of course, we fought a war against Great Britain after that, but that's the day we consider the founding of the United States, July 4th, 1776.
It's going to be a very different celebration this year because we do understand in the diplomatic community, you invite the other ambassadors, you invite your business partners and local government officials as well, but it's going to be very different this time around. So what's in store with these celebrations?
Well, you're right, Abdul Karim. This year, the celebrations are much more subdued than in previous years, obviously because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We normally invite not just other diplomats and other businessmen, but people in the media, such as yourself. And we have a big party. This year, we're mostly doing our celebrating via the web, just as we're doing this interview. Mm-hmm. And in the United States, people are celebrating not by going out in large crowds to watch the fireworks, but frequently watching them at home or having their own fireworks celebrations. The sale of small-scale fireworks has gone up in the United States because a lot of families will be setting them off in their backyards with small groups because the large crowds obviously are not very safe these days. So it'll be a more subdued celebration, but people will still be celebrating with their normal barbecues and getting family together to watch their own backyard fireworks.
That certainly sounds very exciting. But in terms of the importance of this day, we believe on the 5th of July, it will be a day off for the consulate as well, which and with current technology, never off anyway. But in terms of what this day means for Americans and for the diplomatic community such as yours and the mission, talk to us about the significance of the 4th of July.
Well, it's an important day, obviously. It's the day that we put out our Declaration of Independence. And one of the things the Declaration says is that we believe that all men are created equal. And this is a concept, of course, that takes on special relevance now during the Black Lives Matter movement that we see in the United States. And it also talks about the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And, one of the things that struck me when I came to the UAE is that the UAE actually has a Ministry of Happiness. So it's a concept that we share with the UAE. And of course, America is famous for its liberties, its freedoms. So these are not, it's not just a day where we get off from work, but it's a day in which we celebrate the founding ideals of the United States.
So, Your Excellency, there was an element that we've come across. Your public affairs team have mentioned about the Hamilton play and how you've connected with some of your key partners here and given them the opportunity to catch the performance. Talk to us about that and how did it all come about?
Well, as your listeners may know, Abdul Karim, the Broadway musical Hamilton has been the biggest hit Broadway show of the past 4 or 5 years. It's been a tremendous success, and it celebrates the life of Alexander Hamilton, one of our founding fathers, kind of a self-made man. He was not an aristocrat or anything, but through dint of hard work and his brains, he became the Treasury Secretary. And so this play is about his life. Well, Disney has just made a movie out of this play. It's just come out, and we are offering an exclusive viewing to celebrate the 4th of July. We have offered an exclusive viewing to 100 of our contacts here in the UAE to watch it online. So we think that's a great outreach that we can do during this pandemic period.
Let's move on to the connections with the United Arab Emirates. And we believe that you've been involved with a number of outreach programs here in Sharjah in particular. If you can talk to us about the importance of these connections with the individual Emirates themselves, away from the federal level to the local governments in Sharjah, how important has that relationship been and what have we seen so far during your tenure?
Well, let me just start, Abdul Karim, by saying that our overall relationship with the UAE is very strong. We cooperate on so many different levels, on the political level, on the military level, economic level, cultural level, educational level. So we have a long and very tight relationship with the UAE on the federal level. At the US Consulate in Dubai, we cover not just Dubai, but Sharjah and the other Northern Emirates. And we have tried hard during my time here and the time of my predecessors as well to reach out and make connections in those Northern Emirates to reach out with cultural programs and educational programs. For example, last year I hosted a big reception to celebrate the Sharjah Book Fair, which is dear to my heart. I started my career working book fairs in Cairo many years ago. But we reach out to Sharjah in other ways as well. For example, we had a sports program last December in which we brought some former NBA basketball players to Sharjah, and they worked with coaches and about 500 students to run a clinic in Sharjah for a week to train the coaches and train the students on basketball. And these are from former professional players in the United States. We also have programs that we do with the American University of Sharjah, with the University of Sharjah, with Nama, with Shira. So we try very hard to reach out, and also on promoting business and American businesses in Sharjah. We reach out to Shuruk. We have relationships with different entities in Sharjah. So we're trying very hard that not to focus solely on Dubai, but to reach out to Ras Al Khaimah, Sharjah, Fujairah, and the other Northern Emirates.
And certainly it's very important to cement those cultural and educational ties. Now, we've come across a number of changes recently. I think a lot of students, particularly in AUS, will be watching the developments and hearing about these developments very closely in terms of the student visas and the executive order limiting their issuance till the end of this year. To what extent is that affecting the morale of students to come over, and how far are we seeing that these restrictions will be in place, and in terms of your message to those students, aspiring students who want to study in America?
Well, I don't think the executive order deals with student visas. It deals with more immigrant type visas.
Okay.
But there is, you're right, a freeze on issuance of all visas right now, including student visas, due to the pandemic. That's not due to the executive order, but the pandemic has basically closed our consular sections. We are beginning to open up slowly, and I'm hopeful that in the next month or two, we'll start to see more opening up of the consular section and appointments for visas. I can't promise that we'll be starting to issue student visas right away, and I feel terrible for all the students who are admitted to American universities who may not get the visa in time for the fall semester. I'm sure that many American universities are making provisions for students who are admitted to study online until they are able to get the visa. But we need to get this pandemic under control before we open up fully and start issuing those student visas again.
Okay. Now, in terms of America as a great educational zone, what would you like to say to those students who are willing to apply for it, but because of the concerns surrounding the pandemic, they're a bit double-minded whether they should apply or not, those still in school, the opportunities that the United States has to offer them?
Well, I think it's well recognized, Abdul Karim, that the higher educational system in the United States is one of the great systems in the entire world. Whereas most countries have 2, 3, 4, maybe a half dozen great universities, the United States has literally dozens or hundreds of great universities and thousands of universities to choose from. And the advantage, I think, to an American education as opposed to some other countries is that you can get a very good academic grounding in whatever field you're interested in, whether that's engineering or archaeology or literature, whatever. But in addition to that, there are so many other things you can do at university. You can join a drama group, you can join a musical group, the local radio station, the local newspaper. There's all kinds of clubs you can join. So there's so much extra activity that you can get involved in to develop your personal interests at an American university. So I think that's one of the great advantages. Now, for fall admission, it's too late to apply in any case. I think we could apply now for winter admission or for fall 2021 admission. And I'm hopeful that we will get past this pandemic by then so that we'll be back to the normal course where students can apply and get their visas and go and enjoy all the benefits that an American education offers.
That's brilliant. And now, if I were to ask you about the economic developments and the future relations that you see in terms of rooms for developing and enhancing them further, because we've recently heard about the economic policy dialogue that was conducted. Despite the pandemic situation, we're still connected. So talk to us about where can we see this this relationship developing further, and what more could we expect from the US Consulate in terms of improving those business ties and developing this further?
Well, one of the things that I'd like to focus on during my remaining time here is expanding the business relationship during Expo 2020. Expo 2020 will begin now, in October 2021, but I think it's going to be a great showcase for 6 months for American businessmen to come here to the Emirates to show their Emirati partners what they have to offer, to enter into partnerships with groups, and for Emiratis as well to come to our pavilion at the Expo and to show Americans what they have to offer in terms of investment opportunities. So I think that's going to be a great showcase for tightening those economic bonds between our two countries. The other thing I'd like to develop is a little more emphasis on getting the small and medium-sized American businesses to invest in the UAE. Right now, we have a lot of large American companies here. We have Google, Microsoft, Apple, Pepsi-Cola, all the big names. But there are thousands and thousands of medium and small-sized American businesses which should be investing and partnering with Sharjah-based and UAE-based businesses as well.
Well, it's something to look forward to as well, and it's a great initiative of developing those SME with the investment opportunities here in the Emirates of Sharjah as well. But lastly, as we are celebrating the 4th of July, I have to ask you this, and a lot of people would also be quite intrigued. What's on the menu today when it comes to American food and celebrating the 4th of July, and how does it all unfold?
Well, a lot of people, as I previously mentioned, do their barbecues, and they barbecue steaks and they barbecue chicken, and corn on the cob is very big. Mm-hmm. We're a big corn producer. We love to eat corn on the cob. Of course, hamburgers and hot dogs and Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, but it'll be a day for barbecues throughout the United States.
Well, certainly something to look forward to. Thank you very much for joining us, and it has been a pleasure, and a happy 4th of July.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to participate in your program.